It's the beginning of Season 3 at Real Jaén. We are looking to do good things, and our attributes actually look decent now compared to what they were at the beginning. So even though we're stuck in a National B license and the board refused to allow me to even take the next course because they're scared they're going to lose me, we're still developing rather well, and hopefully the training will get the players to become better as well. Speaking of training, we've got a new goalkeeping coach in the form of Alberto Palacios, and he is an upgrade on what we had before. We've convinced him to study the content of Pro license, so hopefully he'll do good things, and he's even on less money than our previous goalkeeping coach, so clearly we found a good person for the role. As for what it does, well, it now means that only one area is not 2.5 stars in coaching ability. That's the coaching form that we're in charge of, which is not ideal that we're the worst coach, but at the same time, it's not a shock. We're just going to hope we do good things. And also, I didn't know this at the time, but when you hover over this, it tells you what you're in charge of and what you're improving. So that's a good sign. Unfortunately, the thing I'm in charge of is off the ball, flair and composure. Though I will say it's better than being in charge of finishing and long shots because, well, I don't think we want to be losing on that. But marking and tackling is there. Aggression, concentration and positioning is there. And then you got these areas, and the fact that there's 2 different areas and you can see what's being improved is good. And hopefully we can get more coaches in the future when we get out to the higher leagues. It's the beginning of the year, and we're expected to be 10th place, though that is because no transfers have really been done. No loans in, no signings have been made. It's literally just the ticking over of the season. So as far as I'm concerned, this is just a representation of the beginning of the year where no business has officially been done, and we've still got to wait for all the loans to come in. The fact we got both teams based in Morocco now in this league says a lot, and they're currently below us, but I'm expecting them to both rise up, as well as many other teams in the division. And Takara struggling as a recently relegated team as the worst team is a bit of a shock. But hopefully we are going to be able to improve and become one of the better teams in the division. I just really want to be one of the teams getting promoted, or at least challenge for the playoffs this year. Even if we're not going to officially get into the playoffs, winning the games is good for the development, and I really want to see good things happening. Despite everything, we actually got the second highest sponsorship income behind Almira's B team, which is a bit of a surprise, but if we can get better money and sponsorship come through in the future, then that's great. I don't see it happening, unfortunately, but I also want to see more money coming in sooner rather than later. And that is because of the fact that despite the sponsorship money coming in, we're still over $500,000 in the red, and I see it getting worse and worse. Remember, at the beginning of last year, we were 127,000 in the green and ended up at 863,000 in the red. So we could be looking at being at £1.5 million in the red at the beginning of the season. We've already lost about 40 grand as it is, about 30 grand. So it's not great, and the player wages is definitely a factor, but at the same time, it's not the main factor, even if it is costing us about 21 of the 30 something grand a week. So there is some problems we need to address, and I'm hoping that we can make some money soon, and that we're not going to be ruined the day that we have all this debt piling up. Alex Cruz is definitely developing as a head of youth development. He's actually still now only just studying his content of Pro license, so that's how good he is without it. Imagine how good he'll be with it. I'm going to be making sure that we have Alex Cruz as our head of youth development for the longest of times until we find someone that's better. Though at the same time, I don't think we will find someone that's better than him right now, even if his formation is not what I'm looking for. He's outstanding for the role. That being said, I have started to let people go from the background roles, mostly the scouts. I don't need this many scouts in the first place, so the fact I let go one of them, I think, tells you just how much I was realizing that potentially we need to cut some wages in that regards. Though we need to make sure that our coaches are good and that we have a good number of people here. The fact that before we signed a goalkeeping coach, all 3 goalkeeping positions were the weakest areas of the background staff thing, and now it's just 2 of them that is no longer fully maximized out, tells me that just how good of a deal it was to get Palacios in and just how much he was needed. That being said, we need to talk about the squad because this is going to be a problem, I think, going forward. Sanchez is still our best goalkeeper. He is a good player for our division, but at the same time, we need to improve on him because he's 34 now. He doesn't like big matches, and he's not going to get much better anytime soon. But Javi Sanchez, definitely important. He is consistent, thankfully. I just need him to get better, and he's actually one game away from 100 league games for us. His most ever games for a single club, so clearly he's been useful to me. Ramon Mendoza is still not really developing, and admittedly I've not given any game time, but his unambitious personality is hurting him. We do have him tied down for another 3 years though. Though if he gets an extra 2 stars or something, he will get to become a goalkeeper for our level. I need better personality traits than him. He has played for us in the past because of injuries to Sanchez, and yeah, that doesn't bode well for him. That being said, in the youth team, got all these goalkeepers. The fact I'm not covering them tells you just how bad they are right now, current ability-wise. Though Jose Antonio Gutierrez is the best of them all, he's also unambitious, so it's not great. That being said, we've got a good selection of right-backs, and Mika Cancelo wants to leave us for a bigger club. So, do I let him go? He's a good player for the division. He likes big matches. He's consistent, and he could become a third-tier player. I know I'm not going to be able to keep him, unfortunately, but I would like to keep him long-term, though he will probably leaving us at the end of this season anyway. So, do I cash it on him now, or do I just wait out for another year and hope he stays around? Because we've got Dario Solar, who we have given first-team football to over the years, and I know that he can be decent. I need him to be good, and he's been my penalty taker for a while, which is not a good sign when he's a 5 penalty taker and actually has taken penalties from me in the past. Mind you, he scored all 3 of them, so clearly not a bad player. At the same time, I do need someone to develop, and he would be the player that would replace Cancelo if Cancelo was to leave us. He's tied down for another 3 years. David Ordonez is another player that is still around. He's a decent player for the division now, and he's actually happy with the fact I've told Cancelo, no, you're not leaving. What are you doing? So clearly, people agree with me with my assessment of saying Cancelo cannot leave us. But this guy is not my first choice right back or centre back. Even if he played 30 times last year, he only started 10 games. It was actually the most appearances he made because of the fact he's able to play as both a right back and a centre back. So clearly, his role has been fixed for him. That being said, Goodwin's still here. Still hasn't really developed, which is not ideal. And I might need to give him first team football on a loan spell because he's got a bad personality, he's consistent, and he can develop. I just need him to do better and better things, and quickly, I really do. So, if he can develop, that's great. But if he can't develop, then loan spell for him potentially. I could just give him a loan spell because he got so many people ahead of him. And that's not even talking about the right back position because Ramoto can play as a left back, as a full back on defend. Not that I really want to. He's a centre back. Let's be frank. A very good centre back for our level and our team. He's considered a leading player for our division now. But Ruben is our number 1 left back right now. And he's been given the first team football because he's good enough for it. And yes, his attributes last year, and yes, his ratings last year were not amazing, and I don't think he'll be good enough for the division right now, but he's actually there, and I can see the development potentially being made here. And we've also got the likes of Eduardo, who is also someone who can improve and do good things. Yes, he's unambitious, but he's natural for the left-back position, so we could utilize that to our advantage. So do I send Goodwin out on loan? In a matter of irony, the centre-back position might be my strongest position now in the 4-3-3 formation. Mato, we've already talked about because we kind of had to. He's really good. Kevin Toner is no longer whining, but he is also on $3,000 a week, so that body doesn't help. He's a good player for our division, though. I think having my new assistant manager has actually given me better understanding of some of the players, to be fair. And he's also consistent. Yes, he's got a bad personality, but he doesn't like big matches. And he's competitive, which is why the red card happened last year when he elbowed someone in the face. Please, do not get red cards in the future. Nico Prieto is a player that I don't think he's ever going to make it, but he's still available anyway. But I have listed him for loan, so who knows, he might leave us. We've also got Manuel, who I think I should give first team football to. He's already wanted on loan. So that's, I think, on how highly he's rated by the teams around us. I think he gets some first team football this year. I really do. His fairly ambitious personality is going to help him develop, I think. And we got Roberto De La Rosa, who isn't amazing, but he's getting better. And I think he could be useful as a backup option, nothing more than that. The end position, we know a few players that are good, but aren't really good enough for much more than that. But Blasco's still 2-star current ability player. He's played as both a centre midfielder and a DM in the last couple of years. He's natural in both positions. I can utilize that to my advantage. His balanced personality is useful, but he's inconsistent, wildly inconsistent to be fair. But he is a leading player for the 5th tier, so he's on the verge of being a decent player for our division, so he's definitely improving. I need to give him more first team football to help his development there. We also got Roberto Lopez Ruiz, who is a midfielder who could also be an exciting DM. So 2 really good options here as a DM position. And I like him a lot. And I really think that if he works on a few things and improves a few things, he'd be amazing. His low determination is a problem, but I think we can work on that through mentoring. But who knows? We also got this guy still who has been around last year, has become a 2-star player as a ball-winning midfielder, mind you. And I think could be decent. He is a 5th tier player, yes, but he's realist as well, so that's useful. So he knows he's probably not going to get much more higher than what he is right now. It's good to have someone who's not just a delusional player who thinks he's better than he actually is. Midfielder's a problem because we've got a lot of players who could play in these positions. Gonzalo Guzman has announced he wants to leave on a free transfer at the end of the season. So do I keep him at the club or do I sell him for £250,000? Because I've been told he's happy with the idea of going for that money. And we could use that money to survive. He's a leading player for our division who could become a good 3rd tier player. So it's not ideal that I might lose him, but do I lose him on a free or do I lose him for $250,000? I'll have to find that out at some point in the future. Chen Ting is a player that has been useful over the years, unambitious, but is going to get first team football regardless because he's so versatile. And if he can become a player for our division, that's great. I think he can, and he can definitely improve a lot apparently, but he's a leading player for the 5th tier, so clearly he's getting better. Nestor is a player that I think will leave at the end of this season because I don't think he's going to get much better. He is a leading player for the 5th tier. He isn't going to get much better. He's liked by the fans. He's consistent. But I might need to give up his position in the first team for the younger talents. We've already talked about Blasco, Abraham, Roberto Lopez Ruiz. Now let's talk about Manuel Gomez, who came through last year, is unambitious, but could be useful. He's also a good deep line playmaker and could also be an advanced playmaker in the attacking midfield role. So again, that role is becoming useful once again. He could also be a decent Mazzala and could actually be a box-to-box if we work on a few things, but I think he's got some attributes I like about him and he could be very, very useful. Though he's definitely more of a playmaker than anything else. Talk about the DM though, I haven't really talked about any of these players because there's no one that really stands out as current ability players. Manuel we already talked about because he's a centre-back, but Eduardo Elman isn't really going to be talking about right now. I should send him out on loan again, potentially, to get some first-team football for the lower tiers. And again, for the midfielders, these are from Mazzalas. They're not standing out at all, really. And the same could be said for the box-to-box. Though Gregorio, I need to give a loan spell this year. He needs to do better. His casual personality is hurting his development. We now talk about the right wingers, and you could see some problems already starting to form. Oscar Lozano is our best player, though he's unhappy with the lack of depth in central midfield, which I actually can't blame him for. Though at the same time, I need him to be doing good things. I actually had to extend his contract using the optional extension because he was refusing to do anything otherwise. And yes, he's a good player for the division. And he's liked by the fans. He's consistent. He likes big matches. He's also 30. So do I just make this his last year for the club and then move on from him? Mostly because we've got the likes of Francisco in the team now. And yes, he's wildly inconsistent. Yes, he's unambitious. But he's only 16 and he can absolutely improve. he's also been improving in some attributes as well. So clearly the unambitious personality is not hurting his development. I do need to improve his crossing though to be a good winger, and inverted winger for that matter. So it's not like I haven't got reasons to want to use him. It's just a matter of making sure he develops properly for the team. We've also got Miguel Angel Martin, who, again, good player for what we are going to be looking for in the future. Only 16 as well. This time has got crossing and dribbling. And yes, his passing is a bit rubbish as his long shots and anticipation. But he looks good. And I think we could use him. He's also inconsistent, but that's fine. It's not the end of the world. But we've also got a lot of things to like about him. And then we got Francisco Jose Silva, who I gave a game to last year. I don't think he did particularly well. If I recall correctly, no, got 6.2. He started that game, mind you. And that was actually a recommendation from my backroom team to start him. So he's not ready for the first team just yet, though his balanced personality is useful. He has got great potential. And if we work on him, he could be a good player for the team. He really could be. Left wing, I think is my favourite part of the team right now. Because we've got Sergio Kabari who could play on both midfield roles, both wide wingers roles in a team. Inverted winger support, he actually wants to play there. And as you know, I like playing him as an inverted winger support. I'm not complaining. He's inconsistent, yes. Though he's only 17, he's going to improve. And the fact he's got two natural positions in both the attacking midfielder left and the midfielder left makes him very useful if I want to go more defensive. The sake could be Stefan Witalo, but even though he is not as good in the area and he's not natural further back in the left wing positions, he's still useful for the role. He's also consistent and is improving. His stamina and balance have both gone up quite nicely. And yes, he's got no strength and his passing's terrible, but he's consistent and he's fairly determined, so I like him a lot. If we look at this, in the inverted wing roles on this position in the youth team, we've got two players that could stand out. They're not good enough right now, so I'm not going to cover them. But now we look at the attacking midfielder role, and there's some players we've covered already, some we have not. Diego is one of the players we've not covered. He's an attacking midfielder who's a good player for our division and is consistent. Though I do need to work on a few things with him, I really do. He's on 2.3 grand a week. He's on another year. Though do I keep him after this year? I don't know yet. We've got some players we have not covered yet at all, like Ruben Sanchez Robles, who is a good winger, though isn't also the best player in the world. He's unambitious and he's inconsistent, so I sent him out on loan last year for 3 games. He did play reasonably well, didn't do much though. Do I send him out on loan again is the main question now. He can play an inverted winger on the left though, so actually knows a role I'd like to play him in. Not very well, mind you, but he still knows how to play the role. But Javier Fernandez, I've been using him as a striker. He can also play as a shadow striker and an inside forward. So, someone I really like the look of, and he's got good potential. He's a mercenary as well, mind you, so he'll go after the money. He's also inconsistent. He's also only 17, so it makes sense he's only good enough for the 5th tier right now. Striking options, we got a few of them. We've already talked about Diego. We talked about Francisco, we talked about Martin, Silva and Fernandez. We're now going to talk about the main striker himself, who's 31 and is our top goal scorer with 44 goals in 90 games over his career. And that's even including the year or the 2 years before we turned up. So he got 70 goals in the first year before we managed them. He's got 27 goals in 56 games since we turned up. So he's not bad for goals. And at the same time, he's consistent, he's good for the division, but does not like big matches. Do I keep him around for a long time? And how could I replace him right now when I don't have anyone that I think can replace him is the main question. And we look at the youth prospects, there's no one really standing out. So no one really can stand out and take his position. So it's a little awkward. So what can you do? We've got options around the team. We've got some good areas. We just need to improve the team a bit more. But I think we're in the right direction to improve our side now. But what I'm going to do is end this here. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I hope you guys would like and share this video and that you subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a lot. But anyway, until next time, goodbye, and well, good night.